Let me ask you this, because I saw you got a little bit flustered when 56.
In a world where culinary fame was reserved for classically trained chefs in pristine white jackets, one woman dared to break every rule. Rachael Ray didn't come from a Michelin kitchen. She came from a grocery store demo counter, a place where she turned chaos into charm and speed into art. Her secret? Not perfection, but connection. She spoke the language of ordinary families, cooked with ingredients you could actually find, and smiled through every mistake. Viewers didn't just watch her. They trusted her, because she reminded them of themselves. But behind that radiant smile was a woman constantly told she didn't belong, criticized for being too loud, too commercial, not a real chef. Yet, somehow, she turned doubt into drive, controversy into confidence, and her kitchen into a kingdom. This is not just the story of a cook. It's the story of a woman who proved that success doesn't need a recipe, only heart, hustle, and a little bit of heat. Long before the bright studio lights and booming applause, there was a small-town girl from Glens Falls, New York, a place where winters were long and dreams had to work twice as hard to survive. Rachael Domenica Ray was born in 1968, into a family where food wasn't about fame. It was about survival, love, and noise. Her mother, Elsa Scuderi, ran restaurants. Her father, James Ray, worked in the same world of steam, sweat, and constant motion. In those kitchens, Rachael found not just flavors, but rhythm, the music of clattering pans, sizzling oil, and laughter that rose above exhaustion. When her parents divorced, Rachael's childhood became a mix of moving, adapting, and helping. She learned to be strong, fast, and practical, the very traits that would one day define her cooking style. While other kids read fairy tales, she memorized spice labels and watched her mom plate dishes under fluorescent lights. There was no culinary school, no fancy mentor, no golden spoon. What she had was instinct, and the kind of work ethic only learned from watching your family build a living one meal at a time. Rachael often said, "We didn't have a lot, but we had dinner." That sentence, simple yet sacred, became her compass. Every dish she would later make, every 30-minute meal, every talk show recipe carried that same truth. Food is love, and love doesn't need to be perfect to feed the soul. In those humble kitchens of upstate New York, the world's most untrained chef was quietly preparing her greatest dish, herself. By her 20s, Rachael Ray wasn't anywhere near a television studio. She was behind a cash register at Macy's in New York City, working the candy counter, smiling through 12-hour shifts and wondering if her life would ever feel bigger than the space between her paycheck and her rent. But that smile, the same one millions would one day recognize, never faded. After a few years, she left the city's chaos behind and moved upstate again, taking jobs wherever she could find them. Managing a pub, helping at gourmet markets, teaching people how to cook quick, affordable meals. One day, while giving a demo at a small grocery store in Albany, she noticed something. The shoppers weren't intimidated by her. They were inspired. She wasn't a chef. She was one of them. That spark became an idea. What if dinner didn't have to take hours? So she created 30-minute meals. A local TV station offered to film her for a segment. Nervous, untrained, but full of heart, Rachael stepped in front of the camera, talking fast, laughing at her own mistakes, burning her fingers once or twice, and somehow making everyone fall in love with her authenticity. The show aired, and suddenly, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Viewers didn't just want her recipes. They wanted her energy. Her warmth turned ordinary ingredients into possibilities. For the first time, cooking shows didn't feel like lessons from above. They felt like invitations from a friend. What started as a small grocery store demo had just become a national revelation. Rachael Ray had found her stage, not in a fine dining kitchen, but in every living room that needed hope, humor, and something good to eat in 30 minutes or less. When 30-minute meals hit the Food Network, it didn't just introduce a new show, it introduced a new kind of star. Rachael Ray burst onto the screen like a gust of warmth in a world that often took food too seriously. She didn't chop like a professional chef. She chopped like someone late for dinner. She didn't lecture. She laughed, and her voice, with its upstate New York twang and unstoppable pace, became part of the American kitchen soundtrack. Audiences adored her. Ratings soared. Soon, Rachael wasn't just teaching people how to cook fast. She was redefining what cooking show even meant. Then came the empire. Her cookbooks topped bestseller lists. Her magazine, Every Day with Rachael Ray, landed on coffee tables across the country. She launched cookware, food lines, and eventually, her own talk show, blending laughter, lifestyle, and a dash of chaos that felt perfectly human. In 2006, The Rachael Ray Show premiered to millions. Guests from Oprah to A-list actors filled her studio, but Rachael remained herself, messy, funny, and unfiltered. She didn't try to be perfect. She tried to be real. Critics called her the anti-Martha Stewart. Fans called her family. Behind every segment, every catchphrase like Evo and Yummo, there was that same small-town spirit, the belief that food was a way to connect, not to impress. By the late 2000s, Rachael Ray was more than a TV host. She was a brand, a lifestyle, a cultural movement that celebrated imperfection and joy. She was on every channel, every shelf, every kitchen counter in America. But with fame that bright comes shadows that grow just as deep. The same charm that made her loved by millions would soon make her a target. For critics, tabloids, and a world that doesn't forgive authenticity as easily as it celebrates it. The rise was dazzling. The fall would be public. Fame, once a blessing, began to feel like a boiling pot, with no way to turn down the flame. As Rachael Ray's empire grew, so did the noise around it. Critics questioned everything: her skills, her image, her right to even call herself a chef. Trained professionals scoffed, "She doesn't belong in our kitchen." Newspapers accused her of dumbing down cuisine, turning art into entertainment. For the first time, America's culinary sweetheart found herself at the center of a storm she never asked for. The tabloids joined in, gossiping about her marriage to musician John Cusimano, hinting at infidelity and cracks behind the perfect TV smile. Photos were dissected, interviews twisted. Even her warmth, once her greatest strength, was rebranded as fake. Then came exhaustion. Years of filming, writing, touring, smiling, all while holding an empire together, took their toll. She began to lose her voice, her spark, and at times, her joy. "Behind the cameras, Rachael was burning out. People thought I was unstoppable," she once said softly in an interview. But every fire needs to breathe. She faced another heartbreak when her home in Lake Luzerne caught fire in 2020. A devastating loss that symbolized more than property. It was a moment that stripped everything back to ashes. Fame, fortune, facade. For most people, that might have been the end of the story. But Rachael Ray had built her life around one truth. No matter how hot the kitchen gets, you never walk out. You rebuild one dish, one day, at a time. The flames that once threatened to consume her would soon become the very light guiding her back. When the smoke cleared, literally and metaphorically, Rachael Ray stood staring at what was left of her home, her possessions, her memories. The fire that had destroyed her house in 2020 didn't just take wood and walls. It took the illusion of control. But in that moment of loss, she rediscovered what had made her who she was all along: simplicity, gratitude, and resilience. Instead of retreating, she rebuilt, slowly, deliberately, and with purpose. From her rebuilt kitchen in upstate New York, she began filming again. This time with no studio audience, no makeup crew, no glitz. Just Rachael, her husband John, and their dog Bella Boo Blue, cooking in a house that still smelled faintly of smoke and survival. Her viewers saw something different now. Not just a celebrity chef, but a woman stripped down to her essence. Someone who had lived through burnout, loss, and scrutiny, yet still managed to smile and feed others. Her charity work grew, too. Through the Yummo Foundation, she began funding programs to teach kids and families how to cook, eat better, and share meals together. In interviews, she talked less about success and more about purpose. Fame fades, she said, but feeding people, that never goes out of style. The media that once mocked her now found something impossible to criticize: authenticity. Her comeback wasn't loud or glamorous. It was quiet, honest, and deeply human. The very same woman once accused of being too commercial had finally become something rare in show business: real. Rachael Ray didn't reinvent herself for television. She reinvented herself for life. Long before social media food trends and TikTok recipe hacks, there was Rachael Ray, standing in her kitchen proving that great food didn't need truffle oil or a diploma. It just needed 30 minutes and a reason to smile. Her impact wasn't measured in Michelin stars but in moments. Families sitting down to dinner together again, parents teaching their kids to stir sauce, people realizing that cooking could be joyful, not stressful. She democratized the kitchen. Rachael made cooking accessible, affordable, and unapologetically human. Her shows inspired millions to believe that good enough could still be delicious, and that imperfection could be its own art form. Within 2 decades, she transformed from a local grocery store demonstrator to one of the most recognizable culinary figures in America. She won Daytime Emmy Awards, earned a place in pop culture, and even changed how supermarkets marketed their food, blending entertainment, lifestyle, and authenticity into a single recipe. Today, generations of home cooks, from suburban parents to young college students, echo her phrases, her laugh, her warmth. Even professional chefs admit, she made people care about food again. Her legacy isn't about fancy plating or restaurant empires. It's about turning the kitchen into a stage for connection, where love, chaos, and flavor all share the same space. Rachael Ray didn't just teach America how to cook. She reminded them why they should. These days, Rachael Ray lives far from the spotlight she once dominated. No bright studio lights, no hurried production crew, just the hum of her stove, the bark of her dog, and the quiet rhythm of the Adirondack woods surrounding her home. For the first time in decades, she's cooking only for herself, her husband John, and the people she loves. There's no script, no countdown clock, only the joy of simplicity. She often speaks about how fame taught her the wrong things first: how to work harder, how to please everyone, how to hide exhaustion behind a smile. But time and fire taught her what really matters: stillness, gratitude, and balance. Rachael now spends more energy giving back than being seen. Her foundation continues to grow, helping children and families learn to cook healthy meals. She supports animal welfare causes, builds community kitchens, and quietly funds disaster relief, acts that rarely make headlines but leave a lasting mark. When asked what success means now, she smiles gently and says, "It's not about being the best cook in the room. It's about being the kindest person at the table." Behind that statement lies a truth earned through years of chaos and courage: that peace isn't the absence of noise, but the presence of purpose. In a world obsessed with fame, Rachael Ray found something far rarer: contentment. In a world where perfection often outshines passion, Rachael Ray chose the opposite. She made mistakes on camera, laughed when things fell apart, and proved that the kitchen, like life, is never about flawlessness. It's about heart. She never wore a tall chef's hat. She never claimed to be a culinary genius. But somehow, through her laughter, her chaos, and her kindness, she fed millions, not just with food, but with courage. The fire that once burned too bright has settled now, not gone, but glowing. The kind of flame that warms rather than consumes. Maybe that's the real secret ingredient. Not olive oil or herbs or timing, but love. Love for people, for imperfection, for the messy beauty of trying again. Rachael Ray's story isn't just about recipes. It's about resilience. And as the last pan cools and the applause fades, one truth remains: success doesn't come from what you cook, but from what you share. Because the greatest meal of all is the one that brings people together.